everybody, welcome back to the Accommodation Show. Today I am joined by the wonderful John Bianchi from pointanalytics, where we will be talking about how to create an amazing short-term rental portfolio. I know it's a little bit broad, but welcome to the show, John.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
I've been looking forward to this episode for quite a while because we're going to be talking about all things data and all things unique selling points for properties. So what that actually means for those of you that are listening is we're going to be talking about the things that make your property stand out. And when you've got two properties that are like for like on a real estate website, or when you're looking at two potential properties that you might take on as a property manager, you go, this one's got 5 rooms, this one's got 5 rooms, which one should I pick? Well, John is going to help us answer that question today. So welcome to the show, John. How are you going?
I'm doing good, and I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to sharing as much information as I possibly can.
Yeah, beautiful. And look, I always like people to sort of give a bit of an introduction as to how they got to where they are now and what they're up to in the industry at the moment. So how about you kind of give everyone a bit of an idea as to who is John?
Sure thing. So I am the head of data for Supros Labs, which is a short-term rental investment fund. That's what I kind of do in 9 to 5, right? But I've also created a company called pointanalytics, which helps people with short-term rental data, figuring out where the most profitable properties are that they could possibly purchase. And, you know, I come from obviously an Airbnb background. I have my own Airbnb portfolio, but now I have this full-time business that I'm growing. And yeah, that's where I'm at today.
Yeah, look, and that's quite kind of fascinating actually, because we've had a bunch of different data people on the episode. We are learning more and more about everything from data to pricing of the actual property to increase occupancy or to make sure that we've got the right kind of occupancy. We're looking at data in terms of purchasing property. We've got tools like AirDNA, Transparent, Beyond Pricing. Where do you fit into the mix? I mean, in terms of data and understanding data?
Well, there's a lot of great tools out there, and there's a lot of, CEOs who run those companies, and they create these software tools, and they essentially give it out to everybody to figure it out, right? So like I've talked to people at AirDNA, and they say they want to stay impartial to the data. They just want to give it to you, but they don't want to tell you how to use it, how to look at it, what to think about it, anything, right? And that's really where I've really made a name for myself, because I taught people a process, right? I showed people how to actually take this data, harness it, and make sense of it that is actionable, right? So I don't have my own software that I'm building out right now, but I help people understand exactly what they need to know to be able to make the best decisions.
Yeah, look, I think that's really important, and I think that there's just, and in many companies that I've worked for, we've had massive troves of data that we could use. And a lot of that sort of data analysis is always something we aspired to look at and aspired to do and aspired to use. Like, oh, we could get this data and figure out all these cool things. And I guess what you're saying is that we have these tools with all of this great data, and now how do we use it effectively to try to make some positive decisions about our portfolio of properties? And folks, for those of you that are listening, we've got, this is going to apply pretty much to anyone out there, but particularly if you're a property manager, and it can be any of the verticals. So if you're going down the arbitrage path, if you're looking at managing other people's properties and you want to figure out which ones you want to manage, if you're looking at purchasing property as well, how do you make a decision on which property? So you figured out your market, but how do you make a decision as to which property you should pick up is what we're going to be talking about today. Have I got it roughly right?
That is correct, yeah. It also, you can also use it as a sales tactic when you're in property management, because you go to people who weren't even considering Airbnb and you prove to them that their home's going to make more money, right? With that kind of data and being able to really show that to people, it's a really great way to make a sale. I did it in the past.
Yeah, fantastic. So tell me, so let's start breaking it down as to what we're looking at and what we're looking at doing. So sort of in the ideal world, we've gone and we've identified our market and we said, okay, so this is roughly where I want to invest. and now we're looking at different properties. Let's do it from a buying perspective. Maybe that's the best way to sort of start this, and everyone can reapply it to what they're doing in their businesses. So we're looking at buying a property, and we can see how much the property costs to buy, or we can see from AirDNA roughly what AirDNA is estimating the revenue to be. What are we looking at from here?
So this is kind of the issue that I'm always telling people not to do, which is you have gone into a market, you've found a property that you like, it's in your budget, and you're trying to then figure out if it would make a good Airbnb or not, right? And I think this is the absolute reverse way of how you should go about it. It's a very traditional way, but it's the reverse way. So what I always tell people is take a look at your entire market, all of the data within your market, get all of that data, make sense of it, right? Sort through it, organize it, and try to understand what it is in that market that makes the most amount of money, whether it be a certain location, certain bedrooms and bathrooms, but then on top of that, what is it about those bedrooms and bathrooms? Like do you need the pool? Do you need the view? Do you need a hot tub? Do you need what size backyard do you need? Do you need 2 living rooms so you can add a pool table in there, right? And keep kind of diving that down, create a list of all of the different things that are driving revenue for a specific type of home, and then go look for that specific home, right? You're creating this buy box very specific to an Airbnb property. And the reason I think this is so important is because there's homes that could be side by side making $100,000 difference, right? Same number of bedrooms and bathrooms, but the way the home looks, the way it's put together, the way the features and amenities that it have will be so different that there'll be literally $100,000 difference. That's no exaggeration. I've seen it many times, right? And so you've got to know that going into that market so that you know you're picking up the home that's doing $100,000 more and not the one that's doing $100,000 less, right? And if you take the average of those two, that's the worst thing you could do.
And why can't we just use AirDNA with the data that's just spitting out to tell us what the average revenue is for a property?
So, well, yeah, that's the last little piece I said there, right? You can't just take the average. Because if you take the average, let's use hypothetical numbers here where there's some properties that are doing 100,000, some properties doing 50,000, right? They're both, let's say 4 bedrooms, they're in the exact same market, and you take the average from AirDNA and the average tells you it's going to be about 75,000, right? Well, for one, you're overpaying, and the other one you're underpaying, right? Or you're not buying the property that you could buy because you don't think it's actually going to make enough money. So in other words, you're losing out on the homes that you could have bought that would actually produce you cash flow, but you didn't buy it because you thought it was going to make 75,000 instead of 100,000, right? So when you know very, very well, when you have a lot of confidence that your home's actually going to make $100,000, you're willing to spend the amount of money that it takes, and that opens up more properties that you're able to actually purchase.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that makes sense. But so if we're basically breaking this down to looking at the different features of a property. To really understand what the revenue drivers are, right? So we're looking at
100%.
Generally, you look at number of bedrooms and bathrooms and then compare for that. But now what you're saying is dive a bit deeper and look at things in a more granular detail. What can we do? What are we looking at in that granular detail, and how can we get that data and really start to make sense of it?
So that's exactly what I'm talking about, right? We're trying to really see beyond just the bedrooms and bathrooms and the location of what it is that's driving revenue. And the only way that I really know how to do this is to use sites like AirDNA, right? And use the data that's in there, just the good data, right? And sort of pull it out of AirDNA and organize it in a spreadsheet one after another. And the reason you're gonna do that is so you can visually see a trend, right? And once you start being able to see a pattern, you realize that's something that could be repeatable, because that's all that data is. All that data is the reason people love data is because it finds a pattern that is repeatable, and it gives you a lot more confidence when you go to do something, right? So by extracting all of that data, plugging it into a spreadsheet, you're going to be able to see a grouping of homes that are all going to roughly be doing around 100,000, right? So that's awesome. Say you get like 5 different listings that are all 5 bedrooms, they're all within a certain location, and they're all making almost $100,000. Well, then at that point, what you have to do is you have to study those listings, right? You've got to try and understand every single feature amenity that they have, because the thing is that they're all going to be really, really similar. They're going to either be like the same size, they're going to have the same look, they're going to have the same, they might all have hot tubs, they might all have pools or pool heaters, right? And what you're literally doing is just creating a list of every single feature and amenity that you're seeing amongst these 5 properties that are all making roughly 100,000. And what you end up with is a checklist, right? You have a literal checklist that you can go out and look for those homes that are available on Zillow or whatever site that you use, right? And now you're just waiting for that property to show up that meets all of those requirements. And that's the sort of like nitty-gritty detail that really helps you know with a lot of confidence exactly how much you're going to make when you get one of these Airbnbs.
So, look, to me it seems obvious. If there's a pool and no pool, then the one with the pool is going to make more money, right? And so we're not teaching anyone anything new. Like,
No,
yeah,
not with
good on you
that.
guys. Like, you just wasted 20 minutes of my life, and I've learned nothing new. What? Let's get a bit more practical. What are these trends? What are the different things that you've kind of noticed and you've picked up in time that seem really obvious? That are not obvious to people, but that could be quite beneficial to start to get people to really think a bit deeper about making those selections.
Perfect. So I'm actually going to explain this with a couple of different stories because I think it's probably one of the best ways that I can. So the first one is that I got a couple homes down in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I did the whole thing where it's like, oh, I need a pool. You know what I mean? Like, most obvious thing in the world, it's like, I need a pool, right? And I looked at some other stuff, and this is when I was still learning, and I was like trying to figure these things out. Opened up 2 rental arbitrage properties down in Scottsdale, Arizona, and both of them completely did not work out, right? They did not produce the cash flow that I expected, and I figured out that the reason was simply because they did not have a pool heater, right? Everything else, I hit it out of the park. But the one thing that was missing was the pool heater. And what I found out and realized over time was that the pool heater extended the market, the amount of time that I could be renting out that property, and it also made me really competitive within that market. And so because I wasn't able to go deep enough in the data to actually realize that I needed the pool heater along with the pool, I ended up losing a bunch of money, right? So that's one example. Now, another one is that we have, for the company I work for right now, we have 2 homes. They're quite literally like blocks away from each other. They are both the exact same bedroom, bathroom count. They're both immaculately designed, right? They've got all the same sort of features. The only difference between these 2 is about like 400 square feet and a backyard that's about 3 to 4 times the size of the other one, right? And so because that backyard is so much bigger, it's making $60,000 more a year. And so that's a feature that if we had known prior, we wouldn't have bought the first property, right? We would hold off and wait to find the second property because that's extra 60,000 is just pure cash flow. And the beauty of it is that the one that's making $60,000 more did not cost a significant amount more, right? So we're getting a way better return on that property than we would on the smaller one with the smaller, actually the one that's almost the exact same, but with the small backyard, right? So like it's those kind of little nitty gritty details that you may just very easily overlook, but they end up turning out to be really important, right?
And you can find it in the data, right? You can figure out
find
where it's at. And how do so we do huge amounts of A/B testing for our clients for when we're building book direct websites, when we're trying to understand the placement of a button, the load speed of a website, and a lot of A/B testing to sort of see how users interact with the websites and then make decisions on how to build better, so we're getting better returns. With this kind of data, so I can see what we're doing. We're grabbing the top percentile of properties, and then we're going, okay, what makes them different? Why are they in the top percentile? And then you said, all right, pool heater. How do we know that it was the pool heater that's created that price difference, rather than another factor, like actually one had better photography and one didn't? How do we make sure that we're getting the source of truth and we're not getting false positives?
Okay. So with that example, part of the process is to only use data that we know is along the same lines of what we're going to be doing, right? So if the photos are good and the photos are bad, you're getting rid of the one with bad photos because you know you're not going to be doing that. But truly, it is extremely difficult to know if it is the pool heater that's making the difference, right? Like it's not super obvious, right?
Yep.
Now, the way I kind of explain this is the top properties tend to have the most features and amenities, right? They don't just have a pool with a pool heater. They have a pool with a pool heater, with a hot tub, with putting green, with string lights, with all of those little things, right? And so because it's so difficult to know that it's the pool heater that's making the difference without actually getting the experience, right? That's how the experience is what allowed me to figure that out, like talking to the actual guests. Without having that, what I always recommend to people is you're creating a list of what every property has. And so one guy might have the hot tub with the string lights above it and a bunch of other features. Then another person has all those features except for the hot tub, but he has a putting green in the backyard. Right? So now for my property, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the hot tub with the string lights, I'm going to have the pool with the pool heater, and I'm going to have the putting green with that in there as well. And so what I'm doing is it's almost like adjusting for risk, right? Like by adding all these additional things in there, you're creating the property that has everything, a combination of everything from all these different properties, right?
So you're pushing yourself into that percentile rather than figuring out what those one or two unique things are. You're actually saying, if I add all of these things, that I should push myself into that bracket.
Exactly, right? Like how could you lose if you have everything, whereas everybody else just kind of has pieces, right? Because like I always think about it from the angle of the guest when they're going to book it, right? They usually have chosen 3 to 5 properties that they really like, and they're trying to decide between those. And so when you're going head to head, you want to be the one with the extra things that they go, ooh, but this guy's got the mini putt, so we're just going to take the mini putt because even though everything else is the same, right? So those are those. Now, mind you, without breaking your bank or without like overspending on absolutely everything, you can also be strategic about it. It's like, well, do I need a Pac-Man game in my home just because somebody had a Pac-Man game, or can I put just a pool table in there and be good to go, right? So that's kind of the way we think about it, and I think about it.
That makes complete sense. And then on the other side of it, if we're talking about going back to the pool pump or the larger garden or yard, what in terms of us marketing it to prospective guests, right? Like it's all good and well having a bigger garden or having the pool pump, but then if it's just on the checklist on one of the listing sites, it's saying it's got a hot water pool.
Yeah.
That might not really stand out. Then you can do different things. So, for example, you can put that extra, the top features in the title. You can put them into the body text of your listing. Is there any theory that you have for marketing it?
Without a doubt, right? So this sort of like business 101. Who's your clientele, right? Depending on what market you're in, you're going to have a different group of clients, different group of guests that are going to be staying with you, and you want to really know their archetype. What do they care about? What do they like? What are they doing? Why are they staying? And then take all of that knowledge of those people and push that to the front of your listing, right? And make that like the most important thing. So as some examples, we have some properties down in a certain area, and we added pet friendly to the title, right? And just adding pet friendly to the title, swarm of new bookings came in, right? Like it was like night and day. And we realized that we weren't paying attention to our client at that time. We didn't realize that so many people had dogs and that was something that they really cared about. But once we add it there, it's right in front of their face. They see it and they go, that's amazing, right? And now I always tell people like to keep the guest in mind when you're designing the home, you're picking out the home, and when you're marketing the home. But at the same time, one area like Scottsdale, bachelor and bachelorette parties go to the same place. So now you have to pick which one you're going to have, and then you're going to choose which photos are going to go up front to match those people as well. So you're going to design the home either really girly or really masculine, and then you're deciding which photos that those people care about more, right? Yeah. Or families or children, whatever it is, right?
Yeah. Or corporate, for example, as well, which is a big one in the middle there. Cool. So obviously we're considering our marketing, things like that. So let's go a little bit bigger. We've got a property management company. We've got 1,000 properties on our books, and we've got probably way more data than most other people have that might have 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 properties. And this kind of a solution sounds, or this kind of thinking sounds super useful to actually say, all right, how do we look at all of our properties and find the worst performing and the best performing, and then start comparing them and how we can start to adjust them? Do you have any thoughts about some practicalities as to what those companies could do?
So the first thing that's coming to my mind is taking the same logic, right? So we're going to do the same process of looking through our properties, looking through the other properties in the area, and figuring out like what's driving the revenue. And if you have 1,000 properties, you obviously can't go all out on all 1,000 different properties, right? But maybe there's one thing that you're really noticing is moving the needle for a lot of these properties. Maybe within your own portfolio, you realize there's this one thing, right? And so what would make sense is if you take that one main thing and then you add it to as many properties as you can. And then once you've done that, you repeat it again, right? You're like, okay, what else can we do to give us another competitive advantage across all of our properties? And you see if that's actually making a difference because you'll have all of that data when you implement whatever it is and you start marketing it or you change whatever it may be, you're going to see if there was a change for the better or not, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's the same process.
Beautiful. Look, I think from a higher level, this makes complete sense to me, and I completely understand the benefits of looking at this amount of data. And I think that the key takeaway for me is that you really do need a lot of data to be able to look at for it to make any sense, right? You can take one, two properties on an individual level and make some assumptions that that's doing better because of that. But you need that bigger data, so that's where the tools like the Transparents, the AirDNAs, the GUM pricing, and whatever else that you're using come into play to sort of help guide you in terms of those next steps. I feel that we've covered off what we wanted to talk about today. Is there anything that I'm missing, John?
No, like that's a lot of the message that I really wanted to get out there and talk about. I think that it's really important though that people understand to not use averages, right? And that spending an extra hour or day getting really nitty gritty with the detail will make a world of a difference on your investment over the next like 5 to 10 years, right? And if you're using those averages, you're going to kind of be shooting yourself in the foot in the long run if you do that. It's something that I talk about so often. So I just want to make sure that it's anyone listening who is considering this may be like, oh, that's way too much work, or I don't want to go that deep. Like if you spend the time, you could be making a $60,000 difference on the property that you decide to get, right? And I think to me that's a great return on your time. And so it may be a little bit of work, and it's a really good skill you pick up as well that you can apply to every single property, every single different area that you go into. Or you could just teach it to somebody on your team and get them to really understand it so you can make even better decisions with every single.
Thanks so much for sharing those insights and some of that, some of the things that you see and that a lot of people that I know are not doing at the moment. What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Best way is actually just to email me. So I like to get on a call with each person, do a free consultation. You can email me at hello@pointanalytics.co. Once again, that's hello@pointanalytics.co. And when you do reach out, I just ask that in the subject line, you mention Bart, and you mention this, that you found me from this podcast.